Good morning. It is Saturday, Sabadaba. Today is Saturday, November 20th, and you are here at Coffee and Headlines, our morning get together live on Facebook, where we examine headlines from our city, from our state, from our country. We check out what's on your mind, your questions, your comments, your ideas, your suggestions, things that you're wondering about uh, that help us connect with our city, with our country, with the culture, with our way of life here in Puerto Vallarta, our home, as a community of English speaking locals. Why am I so happy? Well, for once, it is Saturday. It is the weekend. It's the end of the work week, which makes me very happy. Number two, I was invited to a wonderful, wonderful dinner party last night where I was surrounded by people that were kind and curious about the way we live, people that have interesting conversation and fascinating questions. And there was good food and there was wonderful wine and great company. And I think these are just wonderful things to build around oneself, to keep oneself happy and inspired and connected. And I know this probably doesn't mean a lot to you, but I am just so grateful that every now and then it is nice to have great conversation with other people. But enough about that and enough about me. If this is your first time joining us here at Coffee and Headlines, well, remember that if you write the word new in your comments, you will let us know that you're new, and we will be so very happy to give you a proper welcome. And of course, if there is something particularly important that you want to bring up during the broadcast, it helps a great deal if you add a letter Q at the beginning of your comment. That way we can go looking for those Qs during our chit chat section. As always, we're going to take a look at our news first. We have a little bit of politics, and we know now where the self portrait by Frida ended up. We're going to tell you where. And we have a couple of other city related things, and then we're going to go to the weather, and we're going to go to our chit chat section, but not before thinking a little bit about the fact that today is November the 20th. Let's go. So, for starters, as we mentioned yesterday, Puerto Vallarta Mayor Luis Michel was hoping to present this idea of requesting an 85 million peso loan for the city to be able to cover payroll and Christmas bonuses. This request was presented before the city council, and the city council approved it. So we're going further in depth, which is unfortunate. But then again, I am not an accountant and I don't know how the numbers for the city work. It just sounds really bad on paper when the city is having to borrow money just to meet the payroll. The city council also approved Mayor Michel's proposal to endorse a professional boxer and future ex-husband of mine, Saul Canelo Alvarez, as tourism ambassador for Puerto Vallarta. Last time we had one of those, I think it was my former future ex-husband, Alejandro Fernandez, who just as the boxer was born in Jalisco, but at the time the singer received the commitment of becoming our cultural or tourism ambassador. He received a hefty stipend, but if I recall, in the end, he did not do all that much for the city in terms of promotion. We'll have to see how this works out for the boxer. We also learned that the city council did not waste any time questioning Mayor Michel for bringing the director of SEAPAL to the Tourism Expo that took place in Merida this week, as there are legal ramifications that I don't quite understand, but I think you cannot be an advisor to the mayor and have an appointed position at the same time, or at least some of the council people seem to feel that way. So Mayor Michel went on to publicly endorse SEAPAL Director Salvador Llamas as an advisor, opening the door to questioning from the city council and the media as to the legality of the situation. We don't know exactly how that's going to end up. Meanwhile, SEAPAL's pipes keep failing and bursting throughout the city. This time it was along Matamoros Street in El Centro, where there was a considerable amount of water spilling and flowing down to Juarez Street and eventually to the ocean. And apparently this has been going on for a couple of days, while there are other areas of the city where there is very low water pressure right now. In other news, you know how many of the vendors at the market, at the Rio Cuale market, were relocated to Parque Hidalgo right after the market the market experienced some damage during Hurricane Norma. Well, now shops around Parque Hidalgo, where the vendors from the Rio Cuale have been working temporarily for almost 3 months, are now complaining due to unfair competition, and rightly so. I mean, established shops in that area have to pay rent and light and electricity and so forth and so on, and the vendors just sort of come in and go. You may recall that when Hurricane Nora came and went, city officials promised that the repairs to the market would be done in a matter of 2 weeks. 2 weeks. It's been 3 months, and the vendors are not back at the market just yet. So if you factor this notion into the fact that the bridge along Insurgentes was promised to be completed in the month of December, we now have to be wondering, I suppose, if they meant December of this year or December of next year, or sometime in between. We will start placing our bets in a couple of weeks or so. Now, when it comes to Puerto Vallarta, we love to toot our own horn as being a kick-ass, sought-after destination. But according to Federal Tourism Secretary Michel Torruco Marquez, even while Puerto Vallarta and Riviera Nayarit have stated that they received more attention this year than before at the Travel Expo, we were not the destinations that people inquired the most about. As it turns out, the most sought-after destinations during the Travel Expo were Cancún, Riviera Maya, Mérida, Ciudad de Mexico, and Los Cabos. And when it comes to the type of tourism that attendees expressed interest in, most folks were curious about nature, but not beach. They were curious about cultural destinations and food-related tourism. So much for being the most fabulous beach destination in the country. Let's see what's next. Oh, what's next is the weather. Let us take a look at what's going to happen for this weekend. I love it how Luna organizes all these notes that I take, and all of a sudden I'm finding myself here thinking, okay, so what do we have to talk about? And Luna always brings me up to speed, and we are ever so grateful for that. But Snarky Weather says, blast, that's just the sun, not a comet, come to end all humanity. I suppose that means it's getting hot. It is 27 degrees right now, feels like 29. Humidity is at 63%, and our Fahrenheit temperature is 81 degrees. Our weather forecast for today calls for humidity through the day. High temperature of 32, low temperature of 20. Tomorrow, we will experience humidity as well, high temperature of 32, low temperature of 20, just as tomorrow. Um, and I got my days confused. I gave you today, I gave you tomorrow, which is Sunday. Duh, I need some coffee. And then Monday, it'll be also humid through the day, high temperature of 31, low temperature 19. Clearly, I did not have as much coffee as I should have this morning. And we continue right along with a few other headlines. Actually, I have a couple of other headlines that I want to share with you. The first one is not that one. Let's take a look at that one. We now know where the Frida self portrait ended up. It turns out that the $34.9 million spent for the highest bid at a New York auction for this Frida self portrait was money that belonged to Argentinian businessman Eduardo Costantini. According to Wikipedia, he is a 75-year-old Argentine real estate developer and businessman and the founder and chairman of the Museum of Latin American Art of Buenos Aires. In March of 2018, his net worth was estimated at US 1.2 billion. So I suppose it is a good thing to know that at least the painting ended up in the hands of a collector that has direct ties to a museum. And I suppose this is a good thing. And speaking of good things, today is December 20th. I want to make sure that we don't disregard the fact that today, in 1789, 13 years after the beginning of the American Revolution, New Jersey became the first U.S. state to ratify the Bill of Rights. Of course, today, in 1805, Beethoven's only opera, Fidelio, premiered in Vienna. And today, in 1900, the French actress Sarah Bernhardt received the press at the Savoy Hotel in New York at the outset of her first visit to that city since 1896. She informed about her impending tour with a troupe of more than 50 performers and her plans to play the title role in Hamlet, To Be or Not to Be. And of course, in 1947, on this day, Lilibeth ties the knot. Princess Elizabeth married Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten, who becomes the Duke of Edinburgh, at Westminster Abbey in London. For more information, watch The Crown on Netflix. And last but not least, on a day like today, November 20th of 1910, Francisco I. Madero issues the Plan of San Luis, the Plan de San Luis, which denounced Mexican President Porfirio Diaz, calling for a revolution to overthrow the government of Mexico, effectively starting our Mexican Revolution. Not on Cinco de Mayo, different ballgame altogether. The Mexican Revolution was the first and most important of its kind in the 20th century. It was a major revolution that was not a unified struggle, but an extended sequence of armed regional conflicts that went on for a few years. It destroyed the federal army and replaced it with a revolutionary army, transforming Mexican culture and the government. We have to remember that our president, Porfirio Diaz, had been in office for 3 decades or more, and it just got nasty. But I wanted to give you a little bit of the bits and pieces of the Mexican Revolution, and in a sense as to why this past Monday we had a holiday. Today, traditionally, we would have a parade, but if all goes well, Mayor Michel listened to the advice of our governor, and hopefully we are not having a parade somewhere in the city as we chat. And now let us take a quick look at some of your comments before we continue on with this wonderful weekend. And I hope you will all have a wonderful weekend. I am looking forward to a couple of fun activities. Not to mention the fact that I was gifted a huge amount of yarn yesterday that I have yet to explore. Let's see. Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba. Ooh, Kathy and Den are making apple pie or apple slice dessert for Thanksgiving. Good to hear. That is lovely. Sean says, super squee. That's wonderful. Karen likes sabadaba, and I'd always get a kick out of you adopting some expressions that we use here. Kevin is feeling happy. One step closer to full-time residency. Signed a 1-year lease yesterday. Mazel tov. That is wonderful. And of course, Gary told us that he was going to be checking the Piñata exhibition in Mexico City, and he's going today. That is absolutely great. Please take us with you, and it would be great to see your photographs of the piñatas. Um, Tony Sanchez reports on chiles en nogada at Red Cabbage, and the decoration is centered around Frida Kahlo, which is, we knew that. Very nice owner and food. Happy weekend. Thank you very much. I'm so very glad to hear that you had a good experience at this restaurant. Logan reports on SEAPAL working on Olas Altas right at the intersection of Francisca Rodriguez in the middle of a Friday afternoon, considering all the people that are moving through that part of town. How is anyone supposed to get around? Great question. I have specific medication that I can recommend, but I think you know what I take. Let's see what else we have. Tony makes a comment. Most of the popular beaches are contaminated. Yes, this is true. Most beaches have some degree of contamination. The trick is to know which beaches are in better shape than others. And for that matter, we pay attention sometimes to the blue flag indicators. If you don't know what those are, is it blue flag or red? No, blue flag conservancy. There's this organization that rates beaches. If you have more curiosity about that, just write the word beaches in your comments, and I promise I will not start quoting Bette Midler if you do. Dave Schwartz says that the Argentinian businessman bought the picture with lunch money. Maybe. We never know how those people. Well, why do we know? Yeah. Let's see what else we have. Oh, Angelica, it's great to see you back. I hope your trip was good and that you were able to enjoy your home as you wanted to. And this brings us to pretty much the end of our broadcast. I don't see any more cues. I don't see any other comments, but I always am happy. I am always happy to see all your comments. Dina is hosting a tamal party for his family today. That sounds wonderful. And this is Coffee and Headlines. I also wanted to acknowledge before we go that some of you took time to listen to the podcast we produced about the Marcha de Zacatecas. I very much appreciate your comments. In all honesty, I don't know yet how frequently we're going to do those. Oh, thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. Another comment about the podcast. I want to continue to connect with Mexican music, but I want to connect with other types of music. I want to continue to connect with Coffee and Headlines. But I'm also mindful of the fact that podcasts and Coffee and Headlines are not mutually exclusive. Not everybody likes podcasts, but it was interesting for me to get it out of my system, and I've already thought about a couple of other topics that we can cover there. If you happen to watch the podcast and you enjoyed it and are curious about specific songs or music that you'd like to hear about, please let me know in the comments here, and I will continue to explore how that goes in the weeks to come. In the meantime, enjoy your Saturday, enjoy your Sunday, and I'll see you back here on Monday. Thank you for watching and have a great weekend.